It's the weekend, so let's talk about something other than MBTI. Today, I wanted to talk about self love because it's 2020, it's a new year, and I feel like it's a really important topic that could help a lot of people. Some people in the world are abundant with self love and they're very fortunate. Some have too much of it, but this video in particular is about developing self love for the people who might be a bit lacking in that area. I also wanted to talk about this topic because I get a lot of questions from people who use my typing service about their life, and a lot of the questions are things that I can't possibly answer, like people saying, why am I such a people pleaser? Is it because I'm FE? And me having to go, no, it's not necessarily because you have FE, it's just that you're a people pleaser. So self love would help with that issue. It would help with a lot of issues. And so I thought I would come up with 5 tips. Basically, this video is also, a lot of it is for me because that is an issue that I've been struggling with like all of my life. And I've been making a lot of great strides. I've been in therapy for about a year, and that has definitely helped. But yeah, I feel like self love is a lifelong process that never ends. So, tip number 1 is to decide to love yourself. It's a bit weird, but my philosophy on this is that loving yourself and loving other people is quite similar, and the way I view love, yes, even as an INFP, the way I view love is that it's less of a feeling and more of a decision. So, yeah, like infatuation, having a crush, all of that, or butterflies, those might be feelings, but I see, lifelong love and companionship and, deciding to be with a person forever as, I guess, true love. And I see that as a decision. So I feel like it's important that at some point we just decide that I don't know how you want to go about it. Maybe emotionally, you think I'll feel better if I love myself and then decide to, or you think logically my life will be a lot easier if I choose to love myself, and then however you convince yourself of the benefits of loving yourself, just make a decision to try for it. Tip number 2, it's completely together with tip number 1, and that's to make a commitment. Make a commitment to yourself. So I think of this as like marrying yourself. It's like, we think a lot about who we choose to marry, right? It's like a lifelong commitment, as long as you don't believe in divorce, or you want to try to not get divorced. It's a lifelong commitment. But then we also have to think about how for ourselves, we're pretty much automatically married to ourselves, right? We only have ourselves until the exact moment that we die, unless you plan some sort of joint suicide together. Ignore that. That was just my NE talking. But we basically just have ourselves, and the most important relationship that we can develop is our relationship with ourselves. So a lot of the tips about having a successful marriage is actually really applicable to self-love. All right, so number 3, so these are all like marriage tips now, but number 3 is accept your faults before working on them. So yeah, this is kind of like same in relationships as well. Like if you've ever, had a boyfriend or something and you thought, oh gosh, he's so rude to people or whatever. And you try to change that, but it's like impossible to change because the person senses that you don't love that part of them, so that part gets stronger to rebel because really that person wants to be loved for their full self, like faults and all. So this is why kind of changing other people from a place of disapproval, it really rarely works. At least it doesn't work on the inside. Like they might change your external behavior, but inside they haven't really changed. So this is why it's important to before you start working on your own faults, whatever you perceive your faults to be, you have to accept them. It's kind of like an oxymoron. It's like if I've accepted it, why would I work on them? But okay, sometimes you might see that you have a friend or something that you just totally love the friend, and then you see that they're changing for the better without any like prodding from you. It's like people who love themselves and accept themselves, they have a tendency towards a trajectory towards the better. So if you come from a place of self-love and acceptance, it's possible that you will just more naturally be inclined to reduce your faults, whatever they are. This one is really hard for me. It's really hard for me to like truly accept my faults. I try to just like pretend like I accept my faults in order to like eradicate them, or like for a hack for this kind of video, but no, it has to come from true acceptance. And I feel like the way to do that is maybe a bit harder for SI users, because I feel like you have to accept yourself as a whole. So I feel like for SI users, we're all like, well, I like this part about myself and I don't like this part and I like this part. Everything's very compartmentalized, much like SI is very compartmentalized, but you have to kind of look at yourself as the whole and be grateful for the whole in order to realize that the faults maybe come along with the whole. It's like, I'm bad at doing laundry, or I take forever to do the dishes, but I'm creative, or whatever. Like, you have to take your faults with the good. And you have to accept that you will always have faults. I feel like that's also very important. Like, you can work on them and maybe not even focus on working on your faults, but just work on trying to be better and better every day, however that looks and feels to you. But you will have to accept that no one is perfect and you are not perfect. And yeah, I don't know why this is so hard for me. Like, let me know if you also have this issue. But sometimes we're so focused on this like one thing that isn't right that we forget that some things are never gonna be right. Like, it's never gonna be a perfect life. You're never gonna be a perfect person, and you just have to accept that reality. Okay, number 4 is to perform self-care and self-love actions, even though you don't have motivation. So this one is kind of based on cognitive dissonance, or the idea that cognitive dissonance is basically confusion between your brain and your actions, and we want to avoid cognitive dissonance. So when we perform a certain action, your brain finds a reason for that. So I read somewhere that like, if you want someone to like you, instead of doing a favor for them, you should ask them to do a favor for you. And this is because after they perform that favor, their brain is going to try to avoid cognitive dissonance by trying to find a reason why they perform that action. And usually the reason that they come up with is, because that person is a nice person, or that I like that person. Yeah, basically actions create emotion and actions create motivation. So if you wait around for you to be motivated to do something, you might never do it. But if you just, I know it's hard, but start small. If you just force yourself into doing something that shows self-love, like, I don't know which stage you're at, but I've gone through like several stages of sadness. I don't want to call it depression, but maybe it was that, but several stages of sadness, right? And at some points, I don't even want to shower or get up from bed for the whole day. So if I just force myself to do something small, like wash my face, that shows that I care about myself, then I create a little bit of that feeling. My brain creates a little bit of that feeling to make sense of why I washed my face. So yeah, whichever stage you're at, just start small and try to amplify, because it becomes easier if you start with action, because then your emotions will follow and then you can do a kind of a snowball. But if you wait around for your emotions, even if you're an INFP who supposedly has like somewhat good control of their emotions, it's still gonna be a long wait. Oh, and here it might be useful to specify that self-love actions are not just like indulgence. It's not just about being hedonistic, although there could be that, but it's also about self-discipline. Like, I don't know, if you do drugs every weekend and you try to discipline yourself to not, because you love yourself, that is also part of self-love. So some parts of restriction and moderation are also part of self-love actions. The last and final thing is to be forgiving and expect others to mess up. So this one I kind of learned really recently, thanks to a Patreon of mine, I think. Yeah, she sent me an article about expectations, and I think it was called Expectations Are Premeditated Resentments. So basically, like, it was saying that we expect perfect behavior from our friends and family, and when they fail to meet that perfect behavior, when they mess up in any way, shape, or form, we get really angry and resentful at them. This was so relatable because sometimes I feel like I'm really perfectionistic, and I don't know, if a friend does something that I find to be rude or that I don't like, then I get really annoyed at that, and I can be kind of unforgiving in that scenario. Yeah, what I learned is basically, like, instead of doing that, I should expect people to mess up because people are human. Like, I mess up occasionally, and other people mess up occasionally. So it's important to not judge the other person based on like how they wronged you or how they messed up, but to judge them based on the whole once again. And it's like, if you think that a friend has been a good friend like this entire time, but then once they forgot your birthday, okay, that might be annoying, but you should expect people to mess up in such a sense. And here it's important to note that being forgiving doesn't really mean accepting people into your life. Like, it's possible to forgive someone and be like, well, you messed up, that's human, haha, but also not expect them back into your life. So the forgiveness is basically for you. It's for your peace of mind, and it's for you to not carry around all of that anger and resentment. Okay, so how does this relate to loving yourself? Basically, I feel like the more harsh we are to other people, it's a reflection of how harsh we are to ourselves. So if you accept people messing up, not necessarily accepting them into your life depending on how bad the mess up was, but if you just expect people to mess up, you will also realize that your own mess ups are just natural and human, and that you don't have to beat yourself up for it. It doesn't mean, once again, that you condone the action that you did that you didn't like, but you can forgive yourself and learn from it and move on. Okay, that is all, guys. I hope that was helpful. If you have any self-love, self-care tips, feel free to comment below. I hope that everyone who doesn't have enough self-love will try to like fill their own cup up. It's something that I have to work on all year long. It's like, it's so hard to love other people if you can't love yourself, or it's so hard to help other people if you haven't helped yourself first. So I hope that no one sees this as like a selfish thing. It's more like a survival thing. Honestly, it's more of a survival thing. If you don't love yourself, you are such easy prey. You can be taken advantage of. You can be trapped in relationships where the other person doesn't love you either, and you think that's normal because you don't love yourself. Yeah, a lot of bad things can come from like not having self-love, so this is more of a survival thing. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to support more videos, I do have a Patreon account where you can pledge your support and gain some interesting things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.